Good evening, students. So, today we are going to start with another very important topic with respect to your enterprise network designing is a modular approach to a network design, right? But before that, we will see what we have covered in our last session, right? So in last session we have talked about the structuring and the modularizing the network, right? How it we are going to structure and modularize the network by using the some hierarchical network model, which combines having a three layers, right? That is very much important layers. In each and every network you can find all these errors. So we have seen different functionalities of access layer, distribution layer, as well as the core layer, with some examples of the hierarchical layers. And also we have seen one sample network that will be designed using this particular hierarchical model, how it look like, right? Where the location of this access layer, distribution layer, and core layer is situated, right? And by using that also we have seen one wide area network topology as well, right? So these are the concepts we have talked about in last session, right? So today, if you see in contents, right, we are entering in the world of the enterprise design network, right? So we will first talk about what is the need of this particular enterprise network. What is the before entering the enterprise network, what is the situation of the network, right? How the Cisco comes into this particular enterprise network, right? And how Cisco is going to be a lead in this particular network architecture area, right? And this particular SONA framework we already studied, but here it will be just needed to how Cisco has combined this particular enterprise network with the within the SONA framework. That also we need to discuss. So that's why we have just we will discuss in short how the SONA framework work and how the enterprise network can be integrated into this particular SONA framework, right? So that we will see. Then we need to discuss about the some functional areas of the Cisco enterprise architecture, right? So there are six areas in which Cisco enterprise architecture mainly works, right? So after that six we will see in this particular lecture the first three functional areas, or also we can call it as a module, right? So three module we need to discuss: the enterprise campus, the enterprise edge, as well as the service provider, right? So these three section we will complete today in this particular lecture, and the remaining three, that is enterprise branch, enterprise data center, and enterprise teleworker, we will be covered in our next lecture, right? So let's start with the first point, that is evolution of the enterprise network, right? So before that I will just tell you that before enterprise network comes into the picture, right, the situation or the networks whatever we are using is just as a isolated LANs, right? Different LANs are there. We will use it for any file or any print services, right? So there is not major used of this particular network before coming the enterprise network, right? So after that, when the organizations are interconnected, right, then these isolated LANs whatever is there, right, so their function is grows, right, from the file and print services before that they are using, but it will be just increases. They have added their critical applications into this particular network, right? Then after after some time, the complexity of this particular network is also grows, right? Then we can call it as an enterprise network can be grow, right? And after that, when the Cisco is comes, right, the Cisco which included this particular hierarchical model, right, into this particular enterprise network design, right? And why this particular hierarchical model is designed, right? So in order to what we can call it, in order to easy for the troubleshooting, in order to easy to detect, or in order to easy for designing, right? It will be easy for implement, manage, right? So these hierarchical model can be implemented in this particular enterprise network, right? So we have in last lecture we have discussed this particular hierarchical model, right? So mainly there are three layers into the access layer, distribution layer, and the core layer, right? And with the help of that, right, in both campuses and the wireless or in a wide area network, right, we have used this particular hierarchical model to form an enterprise network, right? So in this three layers, right, you already know what is the functionality of it. For example, if you talking about the core layer, right, so it will be responsible for your the high speed switching, right? So whatever the packet it comes, it will be must have a high speed, it must be transferred with the help of with the high speed, right? And distribution layer, if you talk about, right, so this is a policy based connectivity, right? It will be intermediate between your access layer and the core layer, right? So whatever the policy you need to be incorporated in your network, you can be used the distribution layer in that scenario, right? And the last one is your the access layer, which will be again used for your the local and remote workbook apps access, right? It will be attached to your the distribution layer, right? So these are the some hierarchical model the hierarchical model layers functionalities we have already seen, right? So after that, when the network is became complex, right, then you need to evaluate a network solution, right? How you are going to tackle if the network is very very complex, right? Then in this scenario, this particular hierarchical model is not scaled well, right? So that is the disadvantage of this hierarchical model, right? But if you use this particular hierarchical model very efficiently, right, then if you break this particular your network architecture in smaller tasks or in a smaller blocks, right, then it will be very easy. Okay, so whatever the network you wanted to design, right, just break down this particular network part into a small different modules, right? So it will be used because they have their natural boundaries, right? The physical boundaries, logical boundaries, and as well as the functional boundaries, right? So each and every block is having their own task, right, and that you need to be integrated into your network, right? So you need to take advantage of this, right? You need to break down your network into a small modules, right? You need to take a functionality of it, right? And using that particular functionality, you need to run your network smoothly, right? So this is a purpose for that particular enterprise network, right? And that's why these all six modules what we have talked in the contents, right? So all these six modules have built, right, because of this particular enterprise network, right? In order to efficiently use this particular hierarchical model, right, in order to enhance or in order to use this particular physical, logical, and functional boundaries of each and every module of the network, we are using this particular hierarchical model, right? So if you see this particular Cisco SONA framework that we have already discussed in our previous sessions, right? So in these particular three layers, right, the network infrastructure layer, the interactive service layer, and the application layer, which also includes your the collaboration layer, right? So in this particular network infrastructure layer, there are six modules, or we can call it as functional areas. If you see here, the first one is the campus, then branch, then data center, then enterprise edge, then WAN and MAN, and lastly is your teleworker, right? So all these are nothing but the functional areas, in which we can also call it as modules, right? In these six functional areas, this particular network infrastructure or we can call it as Cisco enterprise architecture, we have distinguished, right? So we will see one by one what is guidelines of for creating this campus network, enterprise campus network, what is the function of this particular campus, how it can be build a campus enterprise network, and all that things we will see one by one, right? So these are the 6 models, right? The enterprise campus, then enterprise edge, right? Then service provider, right? Enterprise branch, enterprise data center, and enterprise teleworker, right? So these are total 6 functional areas or modules we have in our enterprise architecture, right? So we will see one by one what is the functionalities of each and every modules, right? And what is the undergoes modules they have, right? So if you see in this particular architecture, right, this is nothing but your Cisco enterprise architecture, right? So if you see it having all the 6 modules, right? The first one is enterprise campus, then enterprise edge, then the service provider, then enterprise branch, then enterprise data center, and then enterprise teleworker, right? So these are the 6 functional areas we have talked about, right? But each and every functional area is undergoes into a different modules, right? So for example, if you see in enterprise campus, right, it having an this hierarchical model again, the building access, building distribution, campus core, then the server farm and data center, right? And then the second model, enterprise edge, which having an e-commerce and internet connectivity module, right? Then remote access and VPN, and WAN and MAN, side to side VPN. These 4 modules this enterprise edge is having. Then service providers having ISP A, optional alternative ISP B, then PSTN, then frame relay and ATM. These are nothing but the service provider module, right? Then enterprise branch, enterprise data center, and enterprise teleworker is individually is a different modules, right? So we will talk about today for these particular 3 modules, these important modules: the enterprise campus, the enterprise edge, and the service provider module, right? So let's start with the first module, that is enterprise campus, right? So if you see in enterprise campus module, right, so there is a requirement for I earlier told the hierarchical model should be used in a more efficient way in order to design any kind of the enterprise network, right? So if you see in this enterprise network, right, so there are 3 layers: the building access layer, building distribution layer, and the campus core layer. If you compare it with our college network, right, as I already given this particular example in our previous sessions as well, right? So this particular server farm and data center, this was network management, right? For example, this is nothing but your 318, right? In 318 itself there is an campus core, we can call it as layer works, right? It will be attached to your this particular servers, right? And then there is an it will be connected to your building distribution layer, which will be nothing but your the lab number 312, right? And after that it will be attached to your building access layer, that is nothing but your 301, 302, and like that, all the labs, right? So in this way this particular infrastructure is worked, right? So how enterprise campus can be used, right? So this particular we can call it the architecture which combines the core infrastructure, right? For example, the intelligence switching and routing, they can be used in their particular infrastructure, right? For in order to enhance the productivity, right, or in order to enhance the technological thing, they can be used, right? Because in order to, they need to maintain the high availability, right? So for that purpose they can be used redundant hardware or software features, right? They can be used they can be reconfigured their network paths, right? If the failure occurs, right? So all these things they need to incorporate into the into that enterprise campus network, right? So in this way they can be, for example they can be used security related parameter also there, right? Like VPN and all that things. They can be used. Okay. So what is the guidelines for the creating this particular enterprise network that we will see, right? So in enterprise module we will see. Oh, okay. For first of all, we will see what is the sample network, right? So, for example, any kind of the enterprise network, right? It will be divided into the six sections, six parts, right? If you see here itself, right, the campus backbone is nothing but the core layer, right? So, enterprise campus is there, right? Then your telecommunicator is there, branch network is there, right? Then the teleworker is there. Okay, there the internet enterprise edge is there, right? The security related some internet networking devices are also there, the firewall and all that things, right? PSTN network is there, MPLS network is there, right? These are some LANs is over here, building 1, building 2, then the phone connection, then file servers, right? These differently enterprise edge network you have, right? So any kind of the network, if you see, it can be divided into the 6 functional areas, and it will be depending upon the organization to organization, right? Because there is no need that the every organization is having some of the branch offices, right? Each and every organization is having the PSTN network, right? So obviously it will be depending upon the organization to organization. But if the organization is having the enterprise campus network, right, it can be divided into the 6 functional areas, right? So if you see, we will see the enterprise campus model, the first module that we need to see, right? So as I told you earlier, right, one second. Yes. Okay, so if you see in this particular diagram, right, this is nothing but your the enterprise campus model, right? So in this this particular campus infrastructure is again having the building access layer, building distribution layer, this particular the campus core layer, this is nothing but your the server farm, right? For example, this is your 318, right? So we have in the 318 we have the network management tools, right? We have here the our proxy servers is there, our cloud server is there, right? Our college Moodle server is there, right? Our proxy server is there, right? So these all are the servers we have in our 318 lab. That is nothing but your the centralized server room. So right, so in this particular scenario, what you need to imagine that this particular server farm is nothing but the your centralized server room, right? And after that it will be connected to your this particular campus core. So campus core, in campus core you can imagine that whatever the servers and desktops and network management tools are there, right, which are connected to your routers or your switches, right? And these are nothing but your core switches or core routers, right? And after that they will connect it to your the building distribution layer. So that is building distribution is nothing but your what we can call as 318 lab number 312. Okay, so if you see here also, from these particular switches, right, we have a multiple connection or multiple links to each and every devices. For example, this particular server which having this particular link to this particular switch as well as this particular switch, right? So each and every devices which having a multiple links, right? Why this is happen? Because of the fault tolerance, right? We need to keep a backup, right? Backup plan we must have, right? So if one link is down, right, then the alternative links can be used, right? So you will get an 24/7 availability, right? So in this way the structure of the network you need to be create, right? So in this also, if from the server farm, right, to the campus core layer also we have and multiple links, right? From the campus core to the building distribution also we have and multiple links, right? Likewise, from the distribution layer to access layer also we have multiple links, right? And from the access layer we have a single link to the your end users, right, which are using your building access layers, right? So this is a very much important part, right? In order to designing any kind of the network, you need to kept in mind that, right? So all these things you need to kept in mind. Okay, so in a building access layer, right, so which is the what is the responsibility of the building access layer? It will be used for the end user, obviously, right? From a different work groups, from different users, right? So you can provide the uplinks to the building distribution layer, right, which will be contains the end user devices, right? What are the end user devices? Then workstations are there, then IP phones are there, any network printers if you wanted to connect to that, right, to the this particular layer to switches, right? You can also use these virtual LANs, you can configure into this, right? So you need to do this in your building access layer, right? Then we will come towards the building distribution layer. Sorry. Okay, so building distribution layer can be aggregates the wiring closest, right, within the building and provides the connectivity, right? Provide the connectivity to the this particular campus core layers, right? Again, whenever I'm talking about the building distribution layer, right, so you need to be also kept in mind that the QoS parameter, right, that is the quality of service parameters, right? So whenever what is the purpose of the distribution layer? In order to send a packet from the core to the access layer, right? From send a packet from core to the access layer, right? So via the distribution layer, right? So there must be a smoothly packet transfer will be there, right? There not be service quality of the service that must be not be degraded, right? So whatever the packet you are sending, that must be received by that the end users, right? That is the main responsibility of this particular building distribution layer, right? And because of this the particular distribution layer is connected to your access layer, as well as your the core layers, right? And then we will move towards this particular campus core layer, right? So this particular is what is the functionality of campus core layer? It will be responsible for your the high speed communication, right, high performance, right? So it is nothing but the backbone of any kind of the network, right? Because whenever you need to do any communication, right, so in that case the bandwidth, right, the switching, it must be in a high speed, right? Then and then only the communication will be happen the smoothly, right? So campus core is responsible for that, right? And it will be connected to your the server farm, right, and the enterprise edge models, right? So we will see in the next model what is meant by this enterprise edge and all that things, right? So in the server farm model, this is nothing but your the centralized server room, right? In this particular all the servers, right? For example, if you having an email server, you are having a DNS server, you are having a DSCP server, you having any kind of the servers, right? That can be a part of this particular server farm, right? So all the load balancing, all the scalability, right, all these things can be handled in this particular server farm area, right? So high availability and the high reliability, it should be maintained in terms of your the server farm here, right? Because of this only the availability of all the networking resources can be checked, right? So not only this but also the network monitoring, right? If system logging, network configuring, and what we can call it as configuration management can be done in this particular server farm area, right? So because for example in our college campus also the DHCP server we have configured, right? We have configured our proxy servers, right? We have configured our DNS server, right? So all these things where we have done in our server farm, obviously in centralized server room in room number 318, right? So like that you need to keep in mind as how the enterprise campus module can be useful, right? Then we will move towards our second point, that is the enterprise edge model. If you see this particular diagram, right, so we have covered this enterprise campus model first section. Now we are moving towards the enterprise edge model, right? So what is the field, or what are the different models under this? The first one is the e-commerce, the second one is internet connectivity, remote access and VPN, and fourth one is WAN and MAN side to side VPN, right? So if you see this particular e-commerce, right, e-commerce is modules which will be includes here the devices and the services, right, which will be needed for any organization, right, to provide any kind of the e-commerce applications, right? Then this particular internet connectivity, it will provides the enterprise users with the internet access, right, obviously. So any kind of the users, if you see, you need to provide them the internet access by using this particular internet connectivity modules from this enterprise edge, right? Then the third one is the remote access and the VPN, right? It will be determines your the VPN traffic, right? And whatever the dial-in connection from the external users, right, that also it will be taken care of, okay? Then fourth one is your the WAN and MAN side to side VPN model, right? It will be also provides the connectivity in between the remote sites, right, and your the central sites, right, where over the various different WAN technologies it will be taken care of, right? For example, if you are using remote side access, right, so in that case, if you see if you using this particular over the WAN, right, then the remote side and the central side connectivity, it will be managed by this particular module, right? So in the e-commerce model, if you see, for example, what are the different networking devices included? For example, web servers, we can call it at, because it will be useful for any user interface for any e-commerce applications, right? For launching any kind of the application, the web servers can be used, right? Then application servers also we can use, which will be responsible for hosting the various applications, right? Then database servers also we can call it as. Then firewall we can be used, right? Then IPS and IDS system we can used, right? So all these are nothing but some of the internet working devices which we can be used for the e-commerce applications, right? So after that, if you talk about the internet connectivity, right, so there are different internet services which we can be used, right? So for example, HTTP is there, right? Then FTP is there, then SMTP will be there, then related to the internet DNS is there, right? So these are the some protocols or the some standards we can be used in this particular internet connectivity modules, right? So you need to think upon, you need to what we can call as you need to gather some of the protocols, right? For example, here also we can include the VPN, right? For example, here also we can use this particular and IDS also, HIDS, host based intrusion detection system also we can use, right? So some of the thing you need to keep in mind that which will be responsible for the connectivity to the internet services, that all the protocols and all the services can be part of this particular internet connectivity module, right? For example, I have given HTTP is given, FTP is given, SMTP is given, then VPN can be used, right? Remote access can be used, right? So all these are nothing but the part of your internet connectivity module, right? Then we will see the remote access and VPN. So here if you see the PSTN, right, that's the public switched telephone network, right, that also comes into the picture, right? Because dial-in connections is there to access the remote access, right? And for VPN also we are using. So here we also think upon a security aspect, so firewalls can be a part of it, right? Then network intrusion detection system also a part of it, right? Then also we can use the remote access and VPN, right? So here we also think upon a security aspect, so firewalls can be a part of it, right? Then network intrusion detection system also a part of it, right? Then network intrusion detection system also a part of it, right? Then network intrusion detection system also a part of it, right? Then right. Then then what we can dial-in connection we are done with, right. So all these are nothing but the remote access and VPN module parameters, right. So and lastly, WAN and MAN side to side VPN. If you see, so for here in this case we can be use Ethernet connections, then wireless connections, then what is the service providers VPN. Obviously the service providers are also used the VPN technologies, right. So that also we can be used, right. So circuit switch data link technology also we can use, like relay or like ATM or frames, right. That also we can be used in this particular WAN and MAN side to side VPN technological part, right. Then we will move towards this particular third module, that is nothing but the service provider module, right. So this is for 1 minute. Yes, this is your enterprise edge model, right. So in this e-commerce model there are different servers, right. I have mentioned database server, application server, web servers, right. Internet connectivity models also there are different types, as I told you, HTTP, then FTP and DNS and all that things, right. So VPN and remote access also we have told you, and this also, right. So after that we will see this particular service provider model, right. So what happened in the service provider model, we will see. So obviously, so any kind of the enterprise network you need to provide some internet connectivity, right. And for that this particular service provider model can be used to which will be able enable the communication with the other networks, right. So using a different WAN technologies, or using a different ISPs, right. ISPs nothing but your internet service providers, right. So these some of the service provider functional areas is also there, right. For example, if you see, the internet service provider model is there, right. Then a PSTN model is there, the second one, right. And the last one is your the frame relay or ATM models is also there, right. So there are three models under this particular service provider model. The first one is ISP model, that is internet service provider, then the PSTN, and the third one is frame relay or your ATM model, right. So we will see in this particular internet service provider model, right. So there is an some IP connectivity, right. It will be provided to your ISP network, right, which will be gives you a basic access to the internet, or the enabling any internet connectivity to the your enterprise agent services, right. For example, if you earlier you see for this particular e-commerce, right, for your this internet communication, right, then remote access, this WAN and MAN, all these must be require your internet connection, right. And which will be giving you from, if you see in this particular diagram also, from this ISP to your internet connectivity model, and for your e-commerce model there are some links are there, right. So there is a connection in between ISP to this particular enterprise edge model, right. So in this way this particular ISPs can be used, and here if you see there ISP A and ISP B, the two models of the ISP is given, right. So if one ISP is failed, right, we have a second ISP as a backup in our college also, right. If one internet service provider is failed, right, we have a backup line also, right. So in backup line must be there, right. So we have two ISPs, right, ISP A and ISP B, right. So if one is failed, we have another one, right. Then we will move toward this particular PSTN network, right. It will be obviously it will be used for your what we can call as dial-up infrastructure, right, for accessing any kind of the enterprise network, right. And by using this particular ISTN, right, or you can use the wireless technology as well, right. So for existing WAN links also you can be used to connect this particular infrastructure with the enterprise, right. And obviously there are also a backup must be there for this particular PSTN, right. So it will be for this particular PSTN we are using this particular frame relay, this ATM module. We can also think upon this lease lines, right? Now whatever we have in our college lease lines, right? So it will be gives you the point to point connection between the two remote location. Lease line is what it will be gives you a point to point location, right? So all these things we need for this. For example, in frame relay, right? So it is nothing but your the connection oriented. Okay, it is a connection oriented packet switching technology, right? And it will be used for transmitting data traffic, right? And the ATM which will be used to give higher speed alternative for this particular frame relay, right? It is having a high performance than the frame relay, right? Because it will be using the multiplexing technology and the switching, all that things, right? So it will be useful for this particular PSTN model, right? Then yes, then next one which it is we have the enterprise branch, enterprise data center, and enterprise teleworker, right? That we need to cover in our next lecture, right? So what we have covered today is, right, so we have discussed today how the enterprise network can be evolved, right? How the Cisco is entered into the enterprise network. Okay, so hierarchical model whatever we have in our three layers we have, right? Access layer, distribution layer, and the core layer, right? How it will be used in the enterprise network, right? How it divide the a big complex network into a small modules, right? And we can call it as in functional areas, and by using which we are able to categorize different modules, and we can combine it to form a reliable network, right? So this is nothing but the enterprise network we have seen. Then we also seen in the Cisco SONA framework how this particular 6 models can be used as infrastructure services, right? Infrastructure layer, right? Then 6 functional areas, out of which we have discussed today 3: the enterprise campus, which counted distribution layer, access layer, core layer, the server farm, right? What are the different servers in each and every layers are working, right? That also we have seen. Then enterprise edge, the e-commerce, then PSTN, then VPN, right? All these things we have seen. What are the different servers are there in these, that also we have discussed. Then service provider, so we have seen frame relay, ATM, and all that things, right? So we have discussed till 3 functional areas of Cisco. In the next lecture we will see what is the enterprise branch, what is the data center, and teleworker, right? So we will stop today. So here is the test link. So you need to give the test. All the test is mandatory for all, and ma'am will post a link in a chat box, right? So each one you need to give this test. Okay, so we will stop today. Thank you for joining.